All right, everybody. This is episode 115 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. We are going to talk. The generic topic is school movies. Now, right now, you're thinking, "Wow, how many movies take place in a school?" And as Wayne can
All
tell
of
you,
them.
a lot. We both have some specific ones that we're going to talk about. I stayed more like thriller, horror genre. I'm going to start off, Wayne, with a trilogy of films. I'm not going to obviously go into detail on all of them, but it's one of these films has been like really close to me since I was a child. Which people are going to be like, wait, you watched it as a kid? But yes, as we've talked many times, there are a lot of movies I watched as a child that I probably shouldn't have. And this is this series includes one of them. We'll call it the Class series, if you will. Class of 1984, Class of 1999, and Class of 1999 2. So Class of 1984 is this cult hit film that I only saw a couple years ago for the first time. It's known for being one of the very early films of Michael J. Fox. It's kind of like there's a lot of movies that have kind of tried to mimic it. It's this teacher, Perry Reeves, is teaching at maybe not Perry Reeves. Let me look at his name real quick. Perry King. Sorry, Perry Reeves is the actress from Entourage. Perry King is teaching at this school. He's like a new teacher. It's a rough place. The gangs are running the school. The good kids, or Michael J. Fox plays one of the nerdy kids, and they're afraid of the older kids. He gets almost beaten to death, and that's where the new teacher is like, well, we got to do something, and he kind of takes it upon himself to fight against this gang of school kids. And
it's kind of like Lean on Me.
Yeah, very, very, very Lean on Me. There's Dangerous Minds comes to mind. I got that on my list. That comes to mind. The Substitute, which is one I'll be talking about, where they basically did this, but they're like, what? The Substitute was like, we're going to do the same thing, but what if instead of just a teacher, he's also a former Marine? And so that makes it for much more interesting. Like, he knows how to kill these people. Where what's cool about Class?
Not people, students.
Yeah.
Students.
That's true. Students. In Class of 84, what's cool is like you have a teacher who isn't a killer, and so he's kind of like last ditch efforts to like try to save everybody. It's really well done. It's a really good B movie. It's out there. It might be on Tubi, I think. You could find it. So that's a good one for sure. Then the director, Mark Lester, did another movie, Class of 1999, which is the one that I watched several times as a child, as well as its sequel. But the first one is the only good one, really, out of these two, out of the sequel. So Class of 1999 is a science fiction horror film. It's the same idea. You have this. It's like the future from 84. The kids kind of run the school now, so the teachers are basically there just to be like, make sure they don't like kill anybody. Well, someone thinks it's a good idea to make cyborg teachers. And so the cyborg teachers end up running the school. And then obviously, as you can imagine, whenever you put cyborgs into anything, it goes wrong. And they start killing the kids. So now the kids, in this one, the kids become the good guys, and they have to fight their way through these robot teachers, one of which is played by Pam Grier. This one actually has a cast that I think people will recognize. Let's see. You have Joshua Miller, who's actually the brother of Jason Patrick, but you also have Stacy Keach and Malcolm McDowell, Pam Grier, like I said, Patrick Kilpatrick, he was in Minority Report and a bunch of other movies. Like
I love Patrick Kilpatrick.
Yep, he's one of those like 80s, 90s bad guys who showed up in a lot of things.
He could be a terrible actor, and I'd still love him just because of his name.
Yes. So that one is really cool. It's really fun, B movie, sci-fi flick. And then you have the second one, which stars Cody from Step by Step.
Sasha Mitchell.
Sasha Mitchell, who is an abuser. I believe he abused his wife or girlfriend.
Such a lovable character, and you find out who he really is. It's like,
right,
okay.
Took over for Van Damme in the Kickboxer series, like as his cousin or something. So he plays this substitute who comes to town, and then it turns into this all-out battle. It's pretty dumb. This one, they decided to do a lot more kind of like softcore nudity and sex involved into it.
Yeah.
Um, it does have Nick Cassavetes, who's the son of legendary director John Cassavetes, and an actor who's also in the Face Off with Nick Cage and The Wraith with Charlie Sheen.
He was
So
in
he's
the Wraith, right? That
yeah,
one
The
of
Wraith. Yep,
my
that's what I just said. Yeah, he's in The Wraith. He plays the bad guy, and in this one he plays like the love interest. So it's a little different role for Nick
Did
Cassavetes.
you say that? I'm just completely repeating you. My bad.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. It's been a long weekend, Wayne. Yeah, so that's a recommendation of films that I would give that are I think are fun, cheesy, and entertaining. Wayne, what is your first school movie that you wanted to talk about?
This was difficult because, like we talked about, I made the mistake of just doing research when we were getting started for the show this week. Like movies that take place at schools. Brrr, Avalanche, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Heathers, Dead Poet Society, Say Anything, Summer School, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Stand and Deliver, Lean in Me, School of Rock, Bad Teacher, Rebel Without a Cause, The Breakfast Club. I could keep going on and on and on. But one that we talked about, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time about it, is School Ties. We've talked about this one about a year or so ago. I don't remember what the topic was, but
It was Brendan Fraser.
Yes, the Brendan Fraser episode. Maybe it wasn't a year ago. Maybe it was only a few months ago.
I don't remember. It's fine. Yeah. I love School Ties. We can talk about School Ties all day.
Outstanding. Lots of familiar faces.
Yep.
I'll just run through the cast list really quick here. Brendan Fraser is the star David Green. He is the star athlete of Jewish descent at the religious school, and that just can't be accepted or tolerated because of bigots.
Wait, is Kanye West the dean at this school?
Yes, but he was under his stage name, which was Huge Douche.
Oh, okay. It makes sense.
Sorry for the foul language.
Topical humor, everybody.
Topical ointment.
Yes.
But yeah, we've got Matt Damon, we got Chris O'Donnell, Cole Hauser, Ben Affleck is in there, Anthony Rapp. Oh goodness, let me see. I'm sure I'm missing some folks.
Minnie Driver's in that one too, isn't she? Again, is she not in that one? No, I'm thinking of the other one. Never mind. Well, and I'm thinking of one where she did with Chris O'Donnell, the Irish one. My bad.
Yeah. All right. So breaking this one down, here's the synopsis. In 1959, a star quarterback from a working class family is given an opportunity to attend an elite New England preparatory school. A fancy school for college. But is conflicted about whether or not to tell his evangelical classmates that he is Jewish. Gee, this couldn't be a today topic instead of taking place, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, fantastic film, just about hate and overcoming the odds. For a more in-depth, synopsis of this, check out our Brendan Fraser episode, like Michael said. And yeah, you want to add anything to this one? I don't want to rehash.
This movie.
I'm gonna go on a diatribe about this.
No, I mean, this movie is one of those early '90s films of Fraser that I've always really liked. To call it enjoyable is maybe not the right word for it, but it's something that anytime it's on, I feel like I have to watch it. And for what that means, everybody, is there used to be a time when you didn't go through Netflix and pick out movies to watch. So it used to be on TV all the time, and that's how I saw this movie so much. It's very heart-wrenching. The scene with him on the lawn at the end where it's pouring rain and he's yelling for them to come get him because they're treating him like shit. They put up a swastika in his room. It's just a really just gut-wrenching film. Great performance by Brendan Fraser. I mean, I know he's getting Oscar talk this year for his movie The Whale that'll be coming out in December. And you look at a role like this and you're like, you see where, maybe he could get some sort of Oscar talk off of anything, because this is a really great performance from him. Great to see, as you mentioned, Wayne, the young guys in it, Cole Hauser, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, are early roles for them. Matt Damon, I think what they did with this, I remember hearing, they just brought in a bunch of young guys, and Matt Damon basically won the role as the villain. And you could see why, because obviously he's become Matt Damon. So early on, you could just tell that people knew what he had and what he was going to be. A really good, like, just evil-ish performance from him. Evil rich douchebag.
Right.
Yeah, great movie though. It's really, I'm glad you brought that one up because that's one I like to watch often. So
Yeah, no, I was researching the topic, it is on HBO Max, so that's probably going on at some point this afternoon or
yeah,
evening. Because
yeah,
yes,
it's well worth it. All right, so I'm gonna go. I mentioned it already in my other movies I talked about. I'm gonna go with The Substitute as my next film. This is another one I watched in the mid '90s a bunch. It was on HBO and stuff all the time. Directed by Robert Mandel, starring Tom Berenger, Ernie Hudson, Mark Anthony, William Forsythe, Raymond Cruz, and Luis Guzman. It is the story of a substitute teacher. So Tom Berenger is a mercenary and a Vietnam vet, and he comes home to be with his girlfriend, who's at this really bad school, and she ends up getting injured, and so she has to take like time off. So he becomes a substitute because he wants to kind of get to the bottom of what's going on. He uncovers this big like drug dealer conspiracy where like the principal is actually involved, and so he gets his team of mercenaries to like basically fight against these drug dealers. Mark Anthony is like the main student that's involved. It's a really good kind of like mid '90s action flick that I think got a lot of play back then, and maybe people just haven't seen it in a while. It's still really good. I watched it a few years back. I still enjoy this movie. It did spawn a franchise of sorts, as there were 3 sequels starring Treat Rollins. They're not that great. The first one is really the only good one, um, but it's just it's just a really fun, uh, bloody movie where you get this badass mercenary trying to get these students in line, corporal punishment or whatever, which I know I'm completely against everybody. But once you meet all the kids in this movie, and like I said, the main one is like Mark Anthony. He's like the main culprit, where the rest of the kids, he tries to save those kids from going down that same path. Yeah, very good movie. I really enjoy this one. So check it out if you haven't seen it. Wayne, what is your next one?
I'm going with 2003's School of Rock because we don't give enough Jack Black love around here, and
Classic.
I'm gonna throw Jack Black some love. So, for those of you that have lived under a rock and have never heard or seen School of Rock, let me divulge some information your way. After being kicked out of his rock band, Dewey Finn becomes a substitute teacher of an uptight elementary private school, only to try and turn his class into a rock band. So basically, Jack Black's character, Dewey Finn, and his roommate, Ned Schneebly, played by Mike White, he intercepts a letter, or it's a request for Ned to be
A substitute teacher, yeah.
yeah. I'm like, I lost my train of thought there. Blah 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 blah. While not telling Ned that he got this request, he impersonates him. She basically shows up, like, "Hey, I'm a substitute. Doing all your Jack Black things, like skibby bibby ba." All that great, and that is not an assassination attempt on Jack Black's character performances or anything. I love the guy. It's just what you're getting in a Jack Black role 90% of the time. All right, other cast members: Joan Cusack, Adam Pascal, Doug Stack, Sarah Silverman. That's who I was.
She's the girlfriend to Ned. Yep.
Yes, a very young Miranda Cosgrove was in this.
Yep. She's the anal one who can't really sing or play in a band, but she's like their manager essentially, basically, with all the details and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So basically, I don't remember if this is a general class or a specific class that he teaches, but he doesn't teach math or science or any of that stuff. Just rock and roll.
Yes.
Kids the instruments, and it's basically just chaos. Hilarious, kind-hearted. Not kind-hearted, but just type of
it's a very sweet
type of movie.
Yeah, it's a very sweet movie. Jack Black gives a great performance. I think this is when he showed people that he could lead a movie very charismatically. This is basically what I will say, kind of jump started his, being in big movies like every year was from this movie on.
Mhm.
And he killed it, and it's great. You know, people still talk about this movie. It's been making the rounds lately, on like TikTok, where people are going back to it almost 20 years later and using
Ah,
the scenes to enjoy, make cool videos with and stuff.
and there are many music schools that use the School of Rock logo or tag or some kind of something in their name. So it's inspired a lot of music education as well.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
oh, go ahead.
Mike White, who played Ned, the real Ned Schneebly, is actually credited as the writer for this movie. And
Yes,
if you, obviously, being the huge Linklater fan that I am, Richard Linklater did direct this. I
yes, he did.
failed to mention that because who doesn't know that? But
um,
bad me.
yes. So Mike White, you're right. The writer, he's a writer, director, creator of the White Lotus, which was a popular HBO show last year, and starting on a second season soon. Um, he directed a lot of movies, quite a few or a couple featuring Jack Black, and then some. I think he did at least one more that Richard Linklater directed. So yeah, Mike White has been around for a long time, and it's just a movie that he got to write and co-star in. He's in most of his movies, at least in like a smaller role. Um, I do want to bring up too the kids that play the instruments. They actually cast children that knew how to play musical instruments, so they didn't have to teach them. They wanted them to be able to play the music they were playing in the movie and sing. So they got real people to do that stuff, and a lot of those kids are working in the industry, the music industry today. You see them all over the internet, TikTok, whatever. Still working, still doing their thing.
Hmm.
So I thought that was a really cool way to cast that film. Like I said, like we said, Miranda Cosgrove, she was one of the few kid actors that was actually already an established actor at that point. Um, so yeah, it's just a really fun movie. I'm glad you brought that one up. I really like talking about that film. Uh, I still remember seeing it for the first time and just being in awe of how funny and wholesome and sweet that it was. Even though it is PG-13, but it has a lot of like wholesome stuff to it. And the fact that Jack Black's character really he cares about those kids and stuff. I think it was really a really well done movie, and something I think Linklater maybe gets forgotten about by Linklater just because he's done so many prestige Oscar type stuff late, especially of late, that people
Yes.
don't remember that was him. But just another good movie that he did, that he was
I
a part
mean, do we even need to talk about the most epic high school movie of all time, Dazed and Confused? I haven't
of,
brought
right?
that up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, we've talked about that one several times. Great fucking movie, and also again Richard Linklater, like you said, or even
Yep.
Everybody Wants Some, the baseball college movie he did. That's another school one. So he likes living in school, apparently. All right, so my next one is going to be The Faculty from director Robert Rodriguez. It's basically Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but with high school kids. Is written by Kevin Williamson. It stars Clea Duvall, Jordana Brewster, Laura Harris, Josh Hartnett, Sean Hattasey, Famke Johnson, Piper Laurie, Bebe Neuwirth, Robert Patrick, Usher Raymond, John Stewart, and Elijah Wood. Elijah Wood being one of the last cast members listed, but he is actually the star of the film along with Josh Hartnett. Um, so the faculty starts off where these kids are. It shows, like most high school movies, it shows you like the cliques of who's who and what you get the emo kids, the asshole kids, then you have Elijah Wood who's the nerd, he's being bullied. You have Jordana Brewster who's the popular girl who runs the newspaper. Sean Hattasey's the star football player. Josh Hartnett's the drug dealer. It's just one of those films that it reeks 90s, and that's probably why I love it so much, because it just you could watch it and be like, I remember how this movie felt back in in the late 90s. Obviously Robert Rodriguez, a great director. Go ahead, Wayne.
Obviously, when it came out, totally I could identify. It's like, oh yeah, I remember all this. Now, 20 some years later, it's like, fucking kids, get off my lawn.
Yep, a little different mentality. You have the high school kids. Like I said, we get all the hierarchy and stuff, and then Elijah Wood and Jordana Brewster, while they're doing like this they're trying to figure out what's going on. They end up finding a dead body, and that brings in the school. the teachers meet with the parents of Elijah Wood, played the dad played by Christopher McDonald, aka Happy or not Happy Shooter McGavin, Shooter. And they convince him that everything's okay. Really, what's happening is the aliens are overtaking the human bodies and they're controlling them. And they've done that with the school already. The opening scene is Robert Patrick getting infected by we don't see
liquid metal.
By what?
Liquid metal.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We don't see who until the end. So there's I'm not going to spoil, even though it's a movie that's over 20 years old, and I'm sure most people know it. But it's, I think, a pretty great reveal at the end of this film. A great young cast, just Hartnett and Elijah Wood, Jordana Brewster, Clea Duvall, all really good in this movie. It looks like you want to say something, Wayne.
Oh, I was just going to make a stupid Fast and Furious reference. Oh. Yeah, it really went downhill for Jordana after she started dating that street racer.
Yep. I would probably bet that Paul Walker was probably also up for the Josh Hartnett role or the Sean Hannity role, I would imagine. I could totally see him playing either one of those. Yeah, this is just one of those movies that always kind of stuck with me. It's always been one of my favorite 90s films. I didn't even really realize that it was basically a remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers until I got older and saw Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I was like, oh, that's what The Faculty is. So it's Robert Rodriguez's kind of own telling, or Kevin Williamson's own telling of that story. Really, really good, really cool special effects, great kills, great graphics and stuff, and just a really fun movie, I think. So check it out if you haven't seen The Faculty. Wayne, you got one more you want to talk about before we get to the next section?
I've got to, and this is a nice lead into our review of the week. We've got to acknowledge Harry Potter, I think. We've kind of stayed away from this series, and I know I have, just because of not a real big fan of its creator these days with her
it's a bit rough with her.
But I'm going to just focus on Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone from 2001. Directed by Chris Columbus, obviously written by a person I don't want to acknowledge. Starring Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Richard Harris, Maggie Smith, obviously the late, great Robbie Coltrane, Emma Watson, obviously, I didn't want to forget her, Fiona Shaw, the late, great Richard Griffiths as Uncle Vernon Dursley. Oh, Vern Troyer played Griphook in this. I did not know that.
Yeah, he was one of them, and then also
Warwick Davis.
Yep.
John Hurt, Richard Bremer. Obviously, we need to acknowledge Alan Rickman. I keep thinking, I was like, oh, another late great. It really bumped me up.
Yeah. Well, Richard Harris died while they were making him. Everybody probably knows at this point.
He passed away short, but I think before the second was even completed.
Yeah, they ended up being able to finish it because it was Gambone took over in the third one, right? So they ended up finishing his work, whether he was alive or not. In 2, they were able to figure it out.
Completely bulldozing and torpedoing the role of Dumbledore.
I know a lot of people don't like. Richard Harris is very subtle, and Michael Gambone was very not. So
it's okay. I mean, hey, to each their own. So I don't even think I need to give a synopsis. If you don't know what Harry Potter is, I'm sorry, I think, because it is just a fantastic book series, and the movies try to do it justice, and they do a good job.
Yeah.
For the most part. There's just so much in the movies that is left out from the books. You really need to read the books, or do what I do, find an audio version. They are just fantastic. The same gentleman does all 7 books.
Oh, nice.
Of course, I forget, his name escapes me right now, but just fantastic with just the voice work and everything. The Boy Wizard in a Wizarding School. Kind of a nice little segue into what we're going to talk about. It's 8 movies long, and how do I really encapsulate this?
Well, we will have a full episode where we break it down. But yeah, it's. I wanted you to mention it at least.
Yeah, if you grew up with it like we kind of did, like the books, the movie started coming out in obviously the early 2000s when we were in adulthood already. I still enjoyed getting ready for each movie and reading the books as they came out. The last book came out in 2007, I believe.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
The last movie came out in 2011. So, yeah, there have been some subsequent movies in the universe with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them that have kind of evolved into more of a Dumbledore origin story. It's been very interesting to see that dynamic. A lot of criticisms about the new films. Shocking. Fans of the old films don't really like new stuff. And I obviously, I'm guilty of that with the Star Wars stuff. So, and I guess I'm going off on a tangent right now. But yeah. Basically, gosh, there's just so much that you can talk about right now because I don't want to go into like all the, it promotes witchcraft and demonology. Yeah, just like watching Hocus Pocus 2 on Disney Plus, it's inviting demons into your home. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Suspend your disbelief and sit back and encapsulate and engulf yourself in a fantastic story about heart and tragedy and overcoming the odds. I think that's about as generic as I can do, even though I've prattled on. I really do love it. So
yeah, and we should mention too, Harry Potter has it's kind of been one of those stories that's been there for a long time. As I always say, there's really only like ever, when people complain about everything being the same, there's really only ever like 5 different story types to tell. Mm-hmm. And this one is someone is the one that needs to save the day, whether it be Jesus Christ or Neo in the Matrix. Like that's where the Harry Potter goes to. It's like, there's the one that has to save us. And it's that story arc. I read the first 4 or 5 books. And I liked them. I didn't stop just because I just haven't read as much since I finished I think I finished the 5th book. The books were really good. I enjoy the movies for the most part. There's 1 or 2 of them that I don't really care for, but for the most part, I think they're very entertaining.
Right. The one that receives the most criticism is the last movie because it completely changed a vital portion of the ending of that movie, and I was like livid when I was like, "What are you doing? How dare you!" And
for a non-reader of the last book, I hated not hated, but I did not like part 1. I liked part 2. I thought there at least, I'm not familiar with what the ending was supposed to be, but for just someone watching the movies, I thought Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 1, Harry and the kids go camping was really boring. And then I really liked part 2 because it was less boring, and I thought it ended pretty well. And there was a lot of death. But yeah, so again, we'll get into Harry Potter. We're going to have a full episode on it at some point. We just haven't done it yet. But I figured we had to talk about it, and that brings us to our review
of the week.
All right, Wayne, why don't you intro the movie this week?
All right, we are checking out the new Netflix film, School for Good and Evil. And when I heard this title, I'm like, this is the worst title I've ever heard. So did not have high expectations going into this. However, I was pleasantly surprised. I dare say it was magical.
Oh, God.
Lame, I know. So here's a little synopsis breakdown. Best friends Zoe and Agatha. Zoe, yes. Sophie and Agatha find themselves on opposing sides of an epic battle when they're swept away into an enchanted school where aspiring heroes and villains are trained to protect the balance between good and evil. Directed by Paul Feig.
Yep.
Writers are David McGee, Paul Feig, Soman Chiani. Forgive me.
That's the person who wrote the novel. Yeah.
All right. Starring Kit Young, Sophia Ann Caruso. I don't know if any relation to David Caruso. I'm going to assume so.
I'm going to assume they are and move on.
Kate Blanchett is the voice of the Storian. I believe that's the pen, the magical enchanted pen.
Yes, correct.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the movie. You'll enjoy it. Liam Woon, Rachel Bloom, Rob Delaney, Sophia Wiley as Agatha, and Sophia and Caruso is Sophie, our two main characters. Funny how their names are kind of,
I know, yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, wait a minute, that must have been confusing on set.
Mhm. So this is a very interesting tale. They start out with the origins of good and evil, if you will, in an epic battle that is a little bit misleading, to say the least.
Yes, yes.
Um, yeah, it is very interesting about how good must triumph over evil, and it shows. I lost my train of thought again. Wow, I am forgetful on this show today. Sorry. Basically, Sophie and Agatha. It takes place in like a medieval, modern, not
It's,
modern.
well, it kind of, but it feels modern, but it's not because it's in like a medieval times type setting.
Yes.
Um, but and it's I thought it was kind of odd that like everybody else had British accents in their town except for them, which is fine. If you don't want them to do fake British accents, I guess that's fine too.
Better than faking it and then halfway through they lose the
Right,
accent.
yeah, better than costuming it in Prince of Thieves. So we start out in their small village, and then you have they immediately like hear a story from one of the older people in the town, Patty Lapone, about this girl who went missing, and then there's the rumor that there's a school for good and evil, and immediately was it Sophie or what's her name in the movie?
Sophie is the blonde princess.
Sophia Ann Caruso plays Sophie. So immediately Sophie is like, I want this. I want to be a princess. I want to go to this place. This sounds amazing. And Agatha's like, it sounds like bullshit. We probably shouldn't go there. And she doesn't. There's Sophie tells her that she's not going to leave, but Agatha doesn't believe her. So they're both in the woods at night when Sophie's trying to run away. And this thing comes and takes them, plops them in the middle of the forest because Agatha holds on for dear life. And then it takes them to the schools for good or evil, for good and evil. It drops Sophie at the evil school and drops Agatha at the good school, which is obviously not what Sophie wanted. So she right away she's like, "Well, what the fuck? I'm good." And then of course, as it kind of starts to unravel, you start to see, well, maybe she's not so good. And then Agatha just wants to leave. Agatha wants to go home. She wants nothing to do with this weird magical place where even all the good people seem to be kind of assholes. They're just, not evil, I guess. But there are many things that Agatha points out throughout the film that would say otherwise.
Who plays the evil headmistress?
Charlize Theron.
Yeah, she's not listed on. Oh, there she is.
They get
way down on IMDb. It's like I knew.
Yeah. Her and Kerry Washington are way down there because they do it in order of how the movie does it, and everybody else gets listed before Kerry and Charlize. It's the old with Kerry Washington and Charlize Theron, so it's like a total on purpose.
I also didn't mention Lawrence Fishburne because I forgot I didn't see his name, or Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh, who's in essentially in almost every movie this year. Michelle Yeoh has been in a lot lately, which is great because she's awesome. So more Michelle Yeoh, the better. I didn't know Lawrence Fishburne was in it, so that was a surprise. Doing his best Morpheus impression of himself. It felt very Morpheus. I also, Wayne, did not realize that this was about fairy tales. Like I knew it was about fairy tales, but not like actual like one of the characters is Captain Hook's son. One of the characters is the woman
King Arthur's son.
From who? What?
King Arthur's son.
King Arthur's son. And then you have the girl who is the daughter of the witch from Hansel and Gretel. So you have like all these characters there, and our two main characters don't have that kind of history. So they've kind of been chosen for different reasons.
That's why they are referred to as readers.
Readers, yes. As you see later, we're not going to spoil anything for this particular film because it's, I think a lot of people probably don't know that much about it. So we'll let you watch it for yourself. The one thing I was interested about, Wayne, is I didn't know much about this, but the fact that your first movie, you're going to do a 2.5 hour first film was pretty ballsy out the gate. Because I'll tell you what, right away I was like, 2.5 hours, man. I don't know about that. So I will say one of my cons is I do think it's a little long. There are definitely a lot of good parts in this film. I think there's enough to enjoy it for the 2.5 hours. one of my pros is that the performances from pretty much everybody are fucking on point, especially Agatha. I really thought Sophia Wiley was fantastic, and I see a lot of bright things in her future. I think she's going to become a star because she commanded the screen really well, and even through some of the flimsy dialogue that appears throughout this film, because of course they have some fairy tale dialogue throughout it, because you have to throw those puns in there when you're dealing with the fairy tale stuff. Kind of like think like something like Shrek. Um,
Sophia Caruso was very good with the transition from
she
good
was,
to
yeah, she had a lot.
villainous. Like, oh, hello.
So we get to see Agatha kind of go from I really don't want to be here to be like, everyone just like the powerful one, and then you get to see uh Sophie go from being the I'm a princess to, well, maybe I'm not such a princess, and very, using her prettiness and all that stuff to an advantage for herself. And there's blood magic, if you will, throughout this. Kit Young plays the two brothers who started the school for good and evil, or the schools for good and evil. And the evil brother wanted power, and the good brother killed the evil brother. And there's a lot to unpack there that we're not going to really talk about much because it'll reveal spoilers for the film. Overall, Wayne, I liked this movie at certain times. At certain times, I felt like I felt like I was watching like a Harry Potter ripoff at some
Yeah,
times.
you're right.
But it's an enjoyable movie, I think, for the most part. Like I said, the performances are fantastic. So if you're going to watch a movie just for the acting, I mean, you can't do better than Charlize Theron, Michelle Yeoh, Kerry Washington are all great actors in their own right. So I mean, to have them in this movie, along with Lawrence Fishburne, is I think something real special. And then a lot of young actors that give very nice performances. I did like the King Arthur sword, Excalibur, was in this movie. I thought that was really a cool touch. The special effects I thought were really cool. I like the special effects. Those scenes when they cut to like an action sequence, really badass. So I did like those parts of it. Overall, I would say a 6 or 6.5. Wayne, I didn't love this movie, but it's definitely something I think you could put on a Sunday and just enjoy it for the 2.5 hours it is. And it does. One thing that these fantasy movies that are based on novels do that piss me off is when they leave it completely open for a sequel as if that's what they're expecting. I do like the fact that they do seal this one off to where if this is the only movie we get, it has an ending. They add a little tag, to let you know that the story is not over, which of course in most of these cases we get that. But I always go back, I was telling Donovan about this last night. There's the movie The Golden Compass, which I really liked, but they were expecting to make 3 or 4 movies, and so it ends on a huge cliffhanger that never gets resolved. So like I'm glad that they at least were able to resolve this to an extent and give us some sort of ending. What is your rating and your final thoughts on it, Wayne?
I'm going to go 6.5. It was a bit long, and I was with you with the open-endedness of it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Or yeah, it's kind of like you expect more out of it, but it's at a point where if it never comes to fruition, it never comes to fruition, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Being as vague as possible, because I do think people should, find some time to watch this.
Yeah, and I do think the ending too was a little anticlimactic because there's a lot of big stuff that happens, and then when it gets to like the very end, it's kind of like, and it's over, like the final fight scene. But like I said, I think it's enjoyable enough that I think kids, definitely young kids, will like it for sure. Teens.
I definitely have a thought as to where this could have ended if they are planning and already have sequels in place and ready to go.
Yes,
I think the rise of the villainy, I guess you could say, is that vague enough? Would have been a good point to kind of
yes. If they already had it in the bank and they're like, we're getting another one, this is how we do it. But like I said, the fact that they don't know that, and I'm glad that they gave it like an ending. I don't know if that's how the book ends. I never read them. So yeah, I mean, I think again, it's worth your time. It's nothing. You don't have to rush to watch it on Netflix, but I think you'll enjoy it, especially if you watch it with your family. All right. So moving on, Wayne, anything you've watched this week that you want to talk about?
I want to start off by talking about Clerks 3 came out a couple months ago, actually.
Yep.
And big fan of Kevin Smith. Sometimes his movies are hit and miss, but most of the time I'm a fan. It really wraps up. Obviously, it is the end cap of the Clerks series, or the latest one, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Does a very nice job. It's very homagey. There's like clips of the first two movies within
Yep, I've heard it's
sprinkled in.
very good. Yeah, I'm
It is.
excited to see it. I just haven't watched it yet.
It's good. It ties some things together nicely. I'm going to be intentionally vague because, yeah, it's good. It made me smile at the end.
Well,
So
good. And I was one that was very nostalgic over the second one. I know a lot of people were kind of that was a hit or miss for everybody. I really enjoyed the Clerks too, so I'm looking forward to
she was
watching this.
fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
So
All right. Anything else?
started watching the Mighty Ducks again. So we're working our way through the movie so we can start watching Game Changers. So
Nice.
very
Yeah.
hockey centric right now with the NHL starting back up and my son playing in a competitive rec league. So
Yep.
we are hockey centric right now.
Nice. I hope you guys like Game Changers. I like the first season. I think the second season's starting soon or just started or something like that. So
Right.
But all right, cool. All right, so this week, just the 31 days of Halloween, so that's a lot of what I've watched this week. Ghost Ship, the rewatch, Hollow Man, a rewatch. Those movies are all right. My wife really likes Ghost Ship, so that's why we rewatched that one. The Changeling is one I wanted to rewatch.
Love Hollow Man.
Hollow Man, like the Invisible Man movies for some reason, I just like them no matter what. Like Hollow Man's cheesy, but it's fun to see Kevin Bacon go like full on in that one.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Changeling is a really cool ghost story from 1980 that I really like a lot that I just discovered a few years ago, thanks to Shudder and Eli Roth. American Gothic was a crazy fucking movie. I can't believe like what happened in that movie. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is one of my favorite films to watch around this time. Favorite horror comedies of mine. Edge of the Axe I saw for the first time and I've been wanting to see this one. I thought it was pretty terrible. And then Freaky with Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton I rewatched last night. It's just a fantastic movie. Really like that one a lot. I don't remember what Luckiest Girl Alive with Mila Kunis on Netflix. That was actually pretty good. I wasn't sure how that was going to be. I really liked it. It's a great drama.
I've been meaning to get to that one.
Yeah, there are some trigger stuff in it for sure. So if you stuff you can't handle, definitely like rape and school shootings. Those are like the two main plot points. So which I didn't really know going in. I just thought that's kind of cool because it's something else and then it turns into something else throughout the movie. It's really good. Mila Kunis gives a very good performance, probably one of her best that I've seen. But yeah, so check that out for sure. All right, so news and notes coming up, and then we'll wrap this baby up. All right. Marvel Lucha Libre show happening at Disney Plus. Dan Levy to direct first film Good Grief for Netflix, starring Ruth Negga, Hamish Patel, and Luke Evans. Twister 2 is in the works, Wayne. It's called Twisters. They are hoping to bring Helen Hunt back.
No.
Yeah, I know. Dumb Money, the GameStop movie, cast Vincent D'Onofrio, Anthony Ramos, and Dane DeHaan. Sony released the film. That's the one about how GameStop kind of rigged the stock market. Adam Sandler's next film with the Uncut Gems directors, the Safdie brothers, lands at Netflix. Boiling Point, a British film starring Stephen Graham, is getting a 5-episode TV series sequel, also starring Graham, that takes place 6 months after the movie. Damian Lewis to play dual roles in supernatural horror comedy The Radleys. Euros Lynn, Heartstopper, will direct the film, which is based on Matt Haig's novel of the same name. Edward Furlong and Dee Wallace to star in werewolf film The Forest Hills, trailer out soon. Angelina Jolie to star in Maria as famous opera singer Maria Callas. Pablo Larraín, the director of Spencer and Jackie biopics, will direct the film. Release is coming up. Christmas with You, starring Amy Garcia and Freddie Prinze Jr., hits Netflix November 17th. Megan, the James Wan-produced horror film, moved up 1 week and will now release January 6, 2023. And that's basically it for the news this week. There wasn't a lot going on. There aren't any deaths to report so far, which is good always. So, yeah, that's the show for everybody. Wayne,
let's just jump into speculation very quick. Apparently, there will be a soon-to-be-announced Superman movie, potentially with Henry Cavill.
Yes.
Supposedly there's a Black Adam Superman thing happening, or a spoiler or something.
It got spoiled for me just this morning. There's a cut scene in Black Adam. I don't know the details, but you can take from that for what you will. The Rock had already said that he would love to do a Black Adam versus Superman film. So that very well could be what we're getting in Man of Steel 2 when that does officially get announced. They're making it. Who knows? We don't know when or who's directing at this point.
That would be enough to get me to watch a superhero movie again right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to me that they're staying with these same actors, but giving different directors to give their own take on it. I'm really excited to see what people do. I posted something about Zack Snyder recently because people were like, "Redo the Snyderverse then if you're going to do that." And I'm still like, no, don't put it to bed. It's over. Let someone else have this series and do with it what they will. But yeah, so I mean, it's definitely something to look forward to. We're big superhero fans here at the podcast, obviously. The other thing I wanted to bring up to you, Wayne, is funny some discourse online when Harrison Ford was cast as Thunderbolt Ross in the Thunderbolts movie. Everyone's like, "Oh, great! It's like blah blah blah." Like it's such a people were responding like, "Wait, is Harrison Ford like the art movie guy now?" Like Harrison Ford has made a living in his career of being in franchises, people. So him joining another franchise, which I'm sure paid him a lucrative amount of money, which is all he really gives a fuck about. If you listen to him over the years, when Jimmy Fallon, I was watching a clip recently, Jimmy Fallon from when Force Awakens came out, tried to get him all emotional about Han, and he's like, "Oh, was it emotional putting the suit back on?" I don't know if you saw this interview, Wayne, but Harrison Ford goes, "Well, they paid me." So that was it. Like, it's a job, and that's what this is too. This is a job for him. He's not this indie darling that people need to protect. Like Harrison Ford can't be in the MCU. Like seriously, I'm surprised he already wasn't in the MCU, to be honest. So that was one thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up here. But lots of interesting things happen in the movie world as usual. So just listen here for we'll give you all the news every week, all the reviews of the hottest movies, if you will. Wayne, any more final thoughts or no?
Nope, I'm done interrupting you, sir.
All right. So that is the episode this week, everybody. We hope you enjoyed it, and this has been another episode of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.
Ronald Reagan, the actor.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hey, everybody, we're all gonna get laid.